small. And here,
Alice, you went on the left or right side? I guess whatever. Over here, but
Yeah, over there is probably good. Sure. Thank you.
mountains up on a mountaintop in the middle of nowhere. We didn't have any Wi-Fi or cellular or anything. So that's why I kept getting like emails out like this and everything. I was like,
really just
no, it was me and Antonio and my other friend Steve. It's less tech focused. He might have been a little bit though. Yeah.
All right, hey folks. How's it going? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Who had a good weekend? Did I have a good weekend?
Woo!
Only one person had a good weekend? We're coding outside. I look forward to seeing the pictures of coding outside. Please send them along. I love seeing them. All right, guys. I just have a few quick announcements. I'm really going to breeze through these. Everything I'm reading off of right now is in that announcements document I just sent out on the Slack channel. So everything I'm saying right now is all just right now. I'm just going to go through them really quickly here. So in terms of schedules, we did update that. And that was really based on all your feedback. I know I said this a bit last week, but I just want to say again, thank you all for the feedback you've given. It's really helped to drive a lot of these changes for the schedule and sort of coordinating a lot of the other items I'm going to talk about here. So again, thank you for that feedback. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, don't hesitate to set up one-on-one time with myself, Will, Doug, and of course the instructors at TAs have opened their calendars as well for that one-on-one time. So take advantage of that. Please let us know how things are going. So I said this last week on Slack as well here, but this week in particular, React Basics, and then next week Jake will be covering testing. That will most likely sort of be like that fully distributed kind of week again, like we did previously. I'll ask for them this week too, what folks want to do if they want to come in the Tech Garden or have a fully distributed class. Following the testing week, Max will be coming back and joining us for authentication, authorization. And then Joey will be coming back as well to cover 2 weeks of intermediate React. So in short, React Basics moved up, and now we have more React and less testing. So that was all based on feedback. So hopefully to help to correlate with the capstone projects a little better as well, just based on where everyone's at with that. So any questions or thoughts for the new schedule updates here? Hopefully this will help in terms of capstone stuff. Any questions on the updated schedule? All right, so then just a quick update for demo day schedule. I know only Google Classroom, these are probably still outdated here, but this is sort of what we're thinking here for demo days. So today, obviously, no demo day. Next Monday, we will have one. By that point, you should sort of be in the phases of deploying your app, starting some React work if you do ultimately choose React to go with. Then 7/29, so 3 weeks from now, no demo day. Then on 8/5, we'll have a demo day, and then hopefully you'll sort of have some good off by that point if you do have like a login system of sorts or permissions, stuff like that. And then there'll be no demo days after that. But that final week, we'll sort of do like dry runs for the capstone presentations. And you'll have peer reviews. We'll have the instructors, the TAs hopefully be joining us here for that capstone work. So as you ramp up, realize we have 2 demo days that are just 1 week apart from one another, but we want to get you speaking more and just sort of getting more prepared for that capstone presentation and graduation, because it's going to be here before I know it. So ramping up for the demo days and all that good stuff. So any questions on the demo day scheduling? Is everyone comfortable with that? Hopefully this will help for sort of seeing where other folks are at too. Questions on demo days? Cool. All right, so then just real quick for this week. So guest speakers, tomorrow we'll have Raj Jack coming in. He's a CEO of Gritseed. I'll talk about this more in just a moment here, but Gritseed is ultimately a platform to help source and vet talent. I'll talk about that in just a minute here. So he'll be coming. Please try to be in person and on time for both of our speakers tomorrow and on Wednesday. And we're also, just so you're aware, we're exploring a partnership with Gritseed. I'll talk about in just a minute here. So we'd love your feedback when we ultimately do explore that a bit more. And then on Wednesday, we'll have Doc and Kobe research, come prepared for those talks. They will most likely will be looking to hire you here. So and just two quick updates for the classroom GitHub repo. They're still like figuring out the best approach for that. For now, we're still going to utilize that sandbox repo. We found out like a tool called GitHub, I think Classroom or GitHub something. We're trying to see if that might help facilitate a bit. But if you guys have thoughts or suggestions or feedback sort of on the best approach for like using GitHub for like the source control and whatnot, certainly let us know. We're still trying to figure this thing out here as well. So if you have ideas for how to help sort of the GitHub piece, let us know. And then another one here, so we're going to try to start doing like in-person performance assessments, basically just time in class for sort of like a little project or assignment or quiz or something. More to follow on that, but we'll try to get those going because I know it's tough given how much work that is going on in the program. That's why we also need polls all of you last week for how much time that you can actually commit to the class. So hopefully that I'll be able to get some more like immediate feedback sort of in person, and if you can't get to those homework assignments. And lastly here, just for like the in-person stuff here. So I brought up the summary sheets and note-taking stuff during class. I think that you've all found it helpful to sort of have like a big document of all like the vocab and like the new stuff that's covered. So I think Alice, you said you had like an outline prepared here. So we're gonna start trying to do like an outline basically day over day, and then by the end of the class, we're going over and filling any gaps that you all have for ultimately those note taking. So really just collaborative note taking in class. So Alice, if you have something prepared, feel free to send it out to the Slack.
Yeah, I posted it at what I got in students
Perfect. Thank you so much,
staff channel. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. So feel free to take notes in that. Sort of have like an ongoing Google Doc for classroom terms and concepts and all that good stuff. And the last one here I have. So for the quantitative thinking village summer camp, I know Caitlin is going to be doing that. If you have the availability and capacity to do that, I strongly recommend it. Like the more you can do just to get out there, get some coding chops, coding experience, because Nicole in particular, if you're interested, I can introduce you to her. She'd be happy to chat with you and see how you might be able to get involved in that summer camp. Sounds like a lot of fun. And so if you're interested in doing that, just as a last reminder, I think that ultimately kicks off either next week or the following week. So let me know if you're interested in getting involved in that capacity. It looks like a lot of fun.
How old was it? I wasn't quite clear on how old the participants in the camp were.
I think, Kaylee, you can fill me in if I'm wrong, but I think it's children. Yeah.
So they're like 12 to 14. Okay.
So,
This is an announcement you put on Slack.
yeah,
People
I
don't
think
miss it.
exactly. Yeah. So I think I'll send another follow to in Slack here. But yeah, if you want an intro, just direct message me and I'll introduce you to Nicole and she can coordinate from there. Cool. So I'll pause there. Any questions on anything I said there? Cool. All right. So last one I have, just circling back to the grid seed stuff. So like I said, right now Hack Upstate Careers and Code are trying to figure out some kind of partnership with grid seed. You'll hear a lot more from Ross tomorrow on sort of their mission, but it very, very much aligns with what we're doing. So grid seed sort of like the 3 pillars for their mission statement. First being that Raj, the founder, and their team and their company, they believe that there's just a tremendous amount of untapped talent, and folks are very much underemployed, and if given the right opportunities and the right chances, they can really do amazing things. You'll really enjoy the stories he has, but he's taken folks that are in construction and they've gone to QA, he's got baristas, and they become customer success reps. Very much what we're trying to do too, and helping to empower folks to ultimately give this opportunity and then do amazing things that you're all doing right now. He also believes that the whole process of like resumes is kind of broken. You can't really quite represent someone on a piece of paper. And then lastly here, tech has just evolved so much. You don't really need a CS degree to be successful anymore as a technologist. So can't tell, all those things we're very much aligned with as well. So one thing, if you guys wouldn't mind, I'm going to be setting up some links as well that in there in this announcement. Their platform basically helps to source and vet that talent. So we've sort of the same exact screening process that you all took. We sort of ported that over to his platform. If you wouldn't mind giving like a 5 to 10 minute look over, you don't have to like answer the questions. You'll see them all again, but I just want to get your thoughts and your did you have anything else you wanted to bring up for announcements? No, I think we're good. Cool. All right, so I would like to introduce Garnet, your teaching assistant for this week. So Garnet just graduated from high school, and he's attending RIT this coming up semester. And Garnet is actually a previous prize winner, I think, how many times? Once or twice at Hack State?
Yeah, I think twice.
Yeah, so previous prize winner. I'm really fortunate to have him on board. So Garnet, if you want to say a couple more words on all that good stuff.
Yeah, so graduated high school. I'm working part-time right now as a software developer for a company that's kind of here, kind of also has an office somewhere else. It's called Dashboard. It's like a calendar service where you can just like basically you hang it on your wall and you can say like I want my videos and my calendar and my Spotify to go on there, and it'll all go on there. So that's what I do, and I get a lot of like front end and back end type experience through that. But in my free time, I do that a lot through my work. In my free time, I like to do things a little different. I do a lot of machine code, so like I like to figure out how computers work from like the bottom up. Like okay, you write code in JavaScript, but then it gets compiled to C, but then it gets compiled to binary and then to hex, and it's crazy. So I like to mess around with that kind of stuff. And I just got back from Puerto Rico where I spent the whole time trying to develop stuff in Python where I didn't have any internet access, so I couldn't look anything up. It's a lot, but I wrote a music generator where it actually writes like entire songs and like video game music, and it sounds really good. I'm really proud of it. So yeah, that's the type of stuff I like to work on.
All right, folks. Any other questions after me? Feedback, comments, concerns? Otherwise, up to Alice. Going once. All right, everyone. Alice, take it over.
Okay. I will move my stuff over. Okay. Screen share. Okay, cool. So you've all found the document, so that's good. So this is the React Basics course. I'm really happy we've put this here instead of at the very end of the boot camp. As somebody who uses React daily, it's really nice. I think you'll all get a lot out of it. Okay, so first up, let's talk about a goal for the week. I built an app previously. Let's see if I have a link somewhere. Here we go. Wait for this to start up. Oh, this is what happens, by the way, if you don't start a Heroku dyno in a while. Just takes a bit to start up. Yeah. Okay, so this is To-Dos Deluxe. It is the premier careers in code to-do app, and you're all going to build this at the end of the week using React. Ooh. For people at home who can't see me, I wave my hands in a magical fashion. So let's talk a bit about requirements, because you need requirements if you're going to build an app, of course. So currently, what's a to-do app got to do? We got to add to-dos. So we can click Add to Do. We can give it a title. Teach React Basics course. We give it a description. Teach it good, please. And a due date. We can save it. We can mark it completed, which will hide it. We can also show it. And of course, we can edit it later on if we need to. Confirm that it edits and then delete it. So, doesn't seem like there's a lot there. I'm hoping it's a good scope that we can take what I'm going to teach you in this course and we can all build it at the end of the week. So a little bit how I was talking with Max a bit before, how we kind of want the class to run. So instead of following along with me as I code stuff in the very beginning, I want to take like maybe an hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes, just kind of walk you through a little bit about what I'm going to do. Just follow along, take notes in the handy notes doc. And then at the end, I want to give everybody time to work on it themselves. So you can help each other out. You can get help from me or Garnet. I'm hoping that way we can focus on learning in the first half, and then you don't have to get distracted by technical issues. So let's get started. Okay, so first step, what is React? React is a JavaScript UI framework developed by Facebook. You've used jQuery before, and I think you used React a little bit last week in Meteor. Oh, sorry, 2 weeks back. Okay, real quick. History, how much did Max go over with React with you? Nothing? Okay. Just alluded to its existence? Yeah. Cool. Okay, so clean slate. So, React. Front-end development framework, or UI framework rather. Developed. Sure thing. I will pin it. It's in the students channel. Yeah, hold on. I will pin. It's pinned. Okay. So React uses something called the shadow DOM. Let's say I'm back. React is very fast. These interactions here, basically instantaneous, right? So the reason it can be that fast, it uses something called the shadow DOM. And the shadow DOM is basically a copy of everything you see on your page here, just hidden in the background. It's a shadow. And what Facebook found out is instead of using DOM-based operations like jQuery does, so like you could do the jQuery selector, so you could like select by ID and say dot attribute attr to change like one of the like a class or something. Instead of doing that attribute through the DOM, it's actually faster to update your shadow DOM, and then you just compare it to the existing DOM, and then you just kind of see what's changed, and you just diff it over. You just kind of like pass the DOM. It's kind of weird. That's just like how it works a little bit. You don't have to worry about that too much, thankfully. It's just interesting if you want to dig into it a bit more. Yeah, so that's really how it gets its speed. It's also pretty easy to get started with React. So we're going to use a package called Create React App. In the early days of React, it was basically just a UI framework. So you would include it. You would include its script file like a script tag, like you would jQuery or Bootstrap or something. Create-React-App. I'll write down in the thing. Package to easily generate a new React project. So early days, it was basically just a front-end JavaScript code. You would just include it in your HTML files like jQuery, and you could go from there. But Anna, it doesn't replace Bootstrap. It replaces jQuery more or less. I'm sorry. I know everybody has a complicated relationship with Bootstrap. Hopefully, we'll be using a library that will make Bootstrap a little bit easier. I hope. No promises, but we're going to try. Yeah. So instead of in order to include it in like a full featured full stack JavaScript project, you would have to kind of write your own boilerplate to integrate everything together. Well, no more. Facebook finally released Create React App. I think it was Facebook at least. It was Facebook. Thank you. They released Create React App, and that does all the background work and boilerplate you need to get a modern Node.js React app up and running, and just kind of hides that away so you can just worry about writing your React code. So we're going to be using that to get started. So let's jump into that. Okay, so there's two ways to install Create React App. The most common way is you do, let's see, npm install -g, create React App. And like we did, nodemon, I think was one. Oh, permissions. So we can install this like nodemon. Or something we can do that's a little bit easier. npm versions higher than 5 point something include a function called npx, which is it's a task runner essentially. So instead of needing to download a package before you can use it, you can just type npx create React app. We'll give it a name, hello world. And it'll run it for you. No need to download. Don't even need to put sudo in or anything. Oh, sorry. So npx is a node package runner. Create React app is a package we want to run. Basically, a runner in this case just means we want to execute the package without actually downloading it onto our machine. And then hello world is the name of the app that we want to create. So if we look at my directory here, we can see hello world. Yeah, that's a folder name. Yeah, so you can type any folder you want in there. Oh, sorry. I did not post that. I will. Yeah, it's a little much. Let's see, invite. Nope. There we go. Okay, there you go. Yep. All right. So let's open up a new code window and see what Create React App gives us. That's a little too big now. Okay. All right, looks like people are doing some stuff, so I'll wait a little bit. You can do it from wherever you want. Yeah, you can always copy it in later if you want to. So a handy thing to do, so say, so back when I created this, I didn't have the folder hello-world created already, so I put hello-world at the end. So something you can also do if you have your folder created already, so I'd say make your test project. I'm inside of, oops, test project. You don't want to just write test project at the end of your create React app command, because then it will create a subdirectory inside test project called test project. You just want it to go inside of, the base test project. So you can just type, in that case, you can just type create npx create -react -app /. And it will automatically figure out the name of the directory you're in, and it will create a project named that inside that directory. So if we can look at package.json, we see that the name is test project, matches our directory like we expected. Okay, so let's look a little bit at what create React app has given us. Okay, so kind of a refresher. Who remembers the commands to set up a new Node.js project? Remember npm init or anything? Yeah. It is Monday, yeah. So, yeah. But what that would do is give you an empty JSON. So you'd still have to figure out all your dependencies yourself. In this case, by doing create React app, we already have our own package.json file. And it creates us with the dependencies we need to run React projects, namely React, React DOM, and React scripts. Also sets us these scripts that will let us work on our project rather. So we can test, for example, if we want to see our app run, we can just write npm run start. And it'll bring up our app for us. That's basically the one we'll be using mostly now. There's also like a development build function, which will be handy if you want to deploy your capstones later on if you end up going this way. Basically just generates static JavaScript and HTML files for you, so you don't have to worry about running your own node server. Okay, so, oops, that ain't it. All right. So we have a base create React app package now. Let's look at some JavaScript. Okay, so who remember the Max explain anything about JSX when you're doing Meteor? Kind of looked like HTML tags a bit. Okay, so JSX is a JavaScript extension. It stands for JavaScript XML. Basically, it's a way of writing JavaScript markup that isn't really JavaScript and it's not really HTML, but it evaluates. Well, I guess it is JavaScript. It's writing inside JavaScript. It doesn't look like normal JavaScript. You can't just like throw a JavaScript function in here. It's its own thing. But essentially, it represents your HTML that gets outputted to the page. So if we look at this one, our app, we have a div, we have a header, we have an image, key. So these are recognizable tags that you would see inside any HTML file. So they're named pretty similarly. You can pass JSX things called props. So like HTML, you have attributes, like an A tag would have an href attribute, for example. And JSX, they're called props. And props are going to be one of your main ways of moving data into your components as you make them. Let's see, did I explain components yet? No, I did not explain components. So components are basically reusable bits of React.js code. You can, so this app file here, this is this whole function, this returns a component. It's just called your app component. So we could theoretically take this app component and import it into a different file, which is what happens here. We import app from .app, and it renders it on our page. And you can do that with any React.js file, as long as it has that export default. Export default is just a fancy way of saying, hey, this is a module, export this object or function or variable or what have you, and make it available to somebody else to use. Not quite. So module is the main JavaScript file. Modules can export components, but not all modules are components. In this case, when you have like export default and it exports just a component, then it's basically saying the same thing as a component. But you can also have something like export default app, but also you can have const test equals hi, export hi. Oops, export test. Unexpected token. Well, not that exactly, but something similar to that. Let's see if I can find a good example in here. Okay, here's an example. See, so in this one we had two export functions. So we had export function unregister and export function register, unregister and register. Yeah. So that means when you import the server worker.js file, you can import two different things. You can import function service or register and export unregister. Those are your module exports. Yeah, so a component is a specific React thing. Yeah. It's usually made up of JSX, which is like here. So we return this section of JSX that forms our component. So we can create our own components pretty easily. Let's see, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call this our first component. So that is, in the case of this Hello World app, that's your entire UI that you see. Yeah. So components are presentational. They're HTML that gets outputted to the screen. Yeah, yeah. Good question. Okay, so first thing we want to do, we don't need to import React, actually. We can just, okay, two kinds of components you'll see generally. There's something called a functional component and a class component. And let's worry about functional components right now because they're the simplest. So to declare a function component, we can just do const first component equals props. We'll get into what that is in a second. Yeah. How's that? Yes. Yeah, it's not there by default. Okay. And then we can say return, oops. Let's see, return div, h1. Hello, this is the first component. What's your problem, bud? Decided that I've never used, no problems. Oh, Karen, do you remember what the name of that React.js extension was? Okay, and then we can do export first component. Oh, React strap. Okay, perfect. We'll get into that in a little bit. My export syntax is wrong. Oh, then we also do import React from React. That's oddly the most important part, so it's hilarious that I forgot it. Okay, so this is a component. These 11 lines of code. Basically, all this is returns a div with a h1 tag inside that says, hello, this is the first component. Important thing when you're writing components, they can only return one root level tag. So usually you're gonna, unless you have a different need to, you can usually just wrap inside a div or something. Just important to only have one tag at the highest level. You put thousands of lines of codes in between lines 5 and 7 here, just has to keep one div. Okay. So let's import our component. Oh, you haven't seen the import syntax before, have you? Import syntax, you used require up until now. Yes, that's similar. It's a little bit different though, because that's strictly for SAS's purposes. This is for Node.js. Yeah. So basically, we can say import React from React, or we could say constant React equals require React, like so. Yeah. So these two here are equivalent essentially. If you're coming from something like JavaScript, not JavaScript, Python, it uses a similar import statement. But you haven't seen Python, so it's not a huge help to you. Yeah, it's just a way to do it. This seems to be the more favored syntax here, the import syntax. Thankfully, not super hard to learn. Just works similar to require. So I'll comment the code after class. Yeah. This is just an example. After I get through this part, I'll go through building a full application from scratch real quick. So we can say we want to import our first component. We can say import first component from /first component. Just declared.
Now, if you leave those first two lines as is, will it cause a problem? Or you need to comment?
First two lines.
You said the first two lines, they were equivalent? Oh, wait.
Oh yeah, I deleted that. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, if you did leave those both in there like that, it would cause a problem. Yeah. Okay, so then if we just want to use first component, let's pick a good place to put it. We'll just throw it here, right inside the header. No, let's throw it in the body. First component. And just like HTML, you want to make sure you have either a closing tag or the / at the end to do a little shortcut for closing it. All right, now we'll save it. Gotta save this one too. Also important, save all the things. Did my import break? Yes, it did. Typo. Okay, there we go. Now go back to Firefox and we open up our, let's see, what is that, localhost 3000, I believe. There it is. I'm going to move that to the top so it's a little bit easier to see. I didn't realize the header was quite so big. First page. Oh, it's just not there now, huh? Well. Try there. Okay, there we go. That's better. So another nice thing that Create React app does, it sets up your development server so you don't have to refresh your page every time. Like I just changed, hello, this is the first, I just changed that location and it automatically moved up there without having me restart the browser. We can kind of see this in action. I'll drag this to the side here. Sorry, it's gonna be a little bit tight to see. can edit first component. Say, hello, this is the first component. Update. There we go, refreshes itself. So having a nice development server is definitely going to be something you're going to want as you work on your capstones. But moving on from that, we can also set the content. So remember I was saying about props earlier, how they're the equivalent of like an attribute being passed to an HTML tag. So props are passed into your component, you're calling with and putting the prop on from inside that component. So so it looks like if you're looking at HTML, you have like attributes like href or source or something. And then you look at JSX, you see something like source. Yeah. Basically, the difference is here, props get passed into your React.js components. Attributes are not really passing anything. It's just like a feature of the DOM. Yeah. So let's update our first component using a prop. So instead of putting what we want to write in here, we can say, call our prop text. So we can say props.text. Oops. And then we can go back to here. Oh, let's see. So first no more text. It's gone. We've erased it. It doesn't know what to put in there now. But we can tell what to put in there by giving it the text prop. So we can say text showing props working. Right, there we go. It just passes it in there. We can watch it update in real time. Let's see. Should just close that. So we can say showing props working too. Save, updates the page. So what this is showing is basically how you can make a reusable component. So usually it's not a great idea to hard code anything you don't have to. So you really want to make like building blocks, like JSX. Let's see, I'll bring it back to full screen. This div tag here with class name app, you don't want a specific div for every class name. You just want to pass it your class name. So you just want div. You don't want div app, div input, div form, so on and so forth. So it's really nice to have reusable stuff. So instead of having first component with the words first component, and then you have to create a second component with the word second component, we can just keep throwing in new first components with new text on it. Text really, I'm the second component. Oh, this thing is blocking my view. Do one more. Text. I'm the baby. Look back over there, and it just shows all three of them. So we've created a reusable component that will put a div with any h1 tag in it, with any text you give it. Yeah, so when would you want to use that? So for example, say you have a style of a list item, for example. You want to add a icon to it. But maybe your list item can change, like the text can change, like you have cat, dog, mouse, something, a list of animals, and also your icon can change. So you wanted the cat icon, the dog icon, the mouse icon. instead of creating a cat component and a dog component and a mouse component, you can create an animal component. And the animal component just takes a image prop and a text prop. So you just, depending on which animal you want, you just pass it the image and you just pass it the prop you want it to show. So it's really powerful in that regard, where you don't have to rewrite a lot of code. You can just reuse stuff. And reusability is really the name of the game here with React.
So you have like cards on your listing,
Yeah.
you can just keep using cards.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. One component. Let's see. I think I'll have time to get into React Strap today and show that off a little bit. They actually have a card component you can use. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the next thing. I'm just going to go into this real briefly. So there's props, and that can be how you update a component. But usually those are sent in to the prop, so they have to be sent in from like a parent of that prop. There's also state in components, and state is what components can use to update themselves without needing the parent to tell them everything. So what's a good example of this? Say you have a like a rectangle on the screen and you want to change its color based on a rectangle that you, or just like a picture of a color, like you have different color blocks, like a color picker. I can draw this if I'm not explaining it well enough. Yeah, exactly. So instead of needing to create a whole nother component, a color picker component, and then color displayer component, you can put the color picker inside the color displayer, save the color picker's value as state, and then update the color of the display component based on that state. So what does that look like? Let's create a new component here. Call you stateful component. All right. Import React from React const stateful component. Oh, so something special you have to do here. This first component here is called a functional component because it's just a function. It just, you call it and it returns JSX for you. There is also class components. So in order to use those, you call class, you give it the name of your class, and you say extends, oops, React dot component. Wow, good at typing. Okay. So what does this mean? Extends is a keyword that means, hey, take all the properties from React.component and put them into your class. So that gives us stuff like, I'm not going to get into this right now, but it gives us stuff like lifecycle functions that are part of React.component, stuff that can tell you what the meta state of the component is, like if it's being rendered, or if it's about to update, or if it did just finish updating. That's stuff that we can put into our class without having to write it ourselves, just by extending React.component, which writes it for us already. More code reuse, it's good. Bad to write everything yourself most of the time. So, I mean, I'm not sure I could write all those lifecycle functions myself, so I'm really happy that they've given them to us on our own. So inside of class components, you can put whatever functions you want. It really only needs to have one by default though, and that is render. And render does the same thing as our function component. It just returns JSX. So we can say return a div, and let's see. Oh, another thing to note, JSX is surrounded by parentheses and not curly braces. Parentheses. There we go. Okay, so.
You said, so after you said you have to have renders,
Mhm.
so you said you can put your stateful component into your class.
Mhm.
And then,
Yeah.
and then
Render is just like your functional component in that it just returns JSX. Yeah. Yep. And again, only one tag at the root. Okay, so what do we want this to show us? How about we just do a input. We're going to get it a value. I type as text. Okay. Nothing I have to do. For default stateful component. Cool. So I think if we just go back to app here, not that one, this one, I'm going to.
Wait, so a functional component called function.
Yes.
Stateful component, like, change the way the component looks. Is that right?
Almost. So stateful component has state inside of it that can change how the component looks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's like color or.
Yeah, color, text, anything you want to update. You can say which components inside the JSX are visible. Anything basically that you can update based on state. I'll talk a little bit about what state is in a minute here. I just want to get this onto the page. Hide this. Import first. No, sorry. Stateful component. Cool. And doesn't have any props, so we can just say stateful component. Refresh the page here, just double check. Did not update properly. Did that not update properly? Let me try something other than input. Huh. Dear VS Code, please stop. Okay. Darn it, any idea what I'm doing wrong here? This one? Nope, lowercase here. They don't have to be uppercase. It just has to match whatever your import statement is importing. No. So the constructor, if you're not doing anything inside, the constructor actually complained that you're got a useless constructor. I can show that too in a bit. I just want to get this working here. Not usually. White space doesn't matter if someone's inside JSX. Like we can, yeah. Import component. Nope. So we do a React doc component. So that means it accesses it's a property of the main React object. Oh. Oh. To Google. It doesn't look like it's crashing. Let's see. Hold on. I can do. Yeah, you know what? I think you might be right. Well, thank you. Oh, yeah, it's good. Yep. Okay, so important capital letters. Okay. And just for consistency's sake, we'll rename the file here. No, this is camel case. Yeah. So headless camel case would be like lowercase s on there. Okay, so we have our staple component. It is showing up now. Please, no. Yeah, there we go. This is a fun thing that'll happen if you change your casing in one place but not another. It will complain about not matching the name on the disk as far as file names go. So basically, we just have to go up to app, this one really. Then I guess it's fine now. Not sure what that's complaining about. Yeah, making sure it's the casing is all correct. There we go. Just had to restart the server and now it's happy again. Okay, so we have our save come up to the top. We have hi. Okay, so we're going to say, let's add some state to this. So now we're going to add the constructor. We're going to say constructor. Have to put super props in there. Yeah, see, so this is what I was talking about. Gives you a useless constructor error, but not going to use this. Sorry. Peak problem means if there's any, it just kind of brings you to the problem. It just kind of shows you where it is. It's just an editor feature. Yeah. Okay, so we got to add some state. So let's see. We can say this dot set state. Well, let's define initial state. Initial state just can be an object. We're going to say checkbox. Checkbox value, or rather input value. Let's say hi. Oops. All right, I should have put that there. Okay, so we're going to say set state, initial state. All right, so now let's add a button. Type equals button. Let's see. Is equal to click me to change text. Change this to by. All right, and then we want to say on click equals. Okay, so here's the new thing. In order to evaluate JavaScript inside JSX, you want to surround it in curly braces. This lets the JSX interpreter know, hey, stop interpreting. This is JSX. Interpret this as JavaScript. So we can say inside this on click, we can give it a function, e. I'll say, let's see, this dot set state. Let's return input value will be changed. Then, I guess just for fun, let's throw a number on the end of that. Random number. Nah, we don't have to. Okay. Okay. So this should update our state on click. So the final thing we want to do is we have to change what by is used, or what the value of the input is, and we want to get our state value of the input from the state. So we can do value state, or rather, we need this curly braces so we know it's JavaScript. So we can say this dot state dot this dot state dot input value. Yeah, we wait. Okay, I think it's good. I think it's just this dot state is null. This dot state is null, huh? Okay, what am I doing wrong? That shouldn't matter because this is just a variable at this point, not a component. Okay, let me see. React class component. Oh, I see. Don't call set state initially. Just give it to state. So this dot state equals initial state. Okay. Okay, so hi, right? Now we can click this to change the text. Changed. It doesn't change back because we only set it to say it's changed. We can say something like inside our component here, we can say let's see, if this dot state input value equals to hi, then we can say set state else. Oops. Change it to change, or back to hi. And there we go. Now it changes every time. Yeah. So what state is good for is updating your components when they don't need any output or any input from a parent component. So in this case, we already know that we only have two values that are a text box, right? And we want to flip-flop them back and forth. So we can just set the state to one of those values, put it in the text box, and then when we click the button, we can just flip-flop the state. This is a bit of a basic example. As you work on your capstones, I'm sure you'll find more examples where state will become necessary. One of the big challenges when you're starting out on React is deciding what should be state and what should be props. It's really important to not put everything into props. Otherwise, it kind of breaks the like the reusable nature of a lot of React components.
Can you explain again what a prop is?
So yeah, so a prop is something that's passed into a component when you when you render the component on a page or inside of another component. Nope, that would be size. Well, so it depends on where you're setting that. If you want to set it in size, inside your component, then it would be state. But if you wanted to say have another form that separate from that, like a sibling component, and that's your size form, you could get your state from that and then pass it into your other component as a prop to set its size. So it's really about the context in which case you're using a component. Yeah, let's see if I can think of a good example.
Yeah, that would help.
Do you have any ideas, Garnet?
I always think like social networking.
Mhm.
Anytime you're on like Facebook or something, there's just like the default like there's users, but there's a lot of different things that a user can have. Like each user is going to have a different username, a different email, a different name, and that's all stuff that you can just pass into the props, and then it takes like a default class and kind of changes it and like personalizes it based on each person.
Yeah.
So really, it's kind of like what you're saying is maybe props is like you're in a theater, you're whatever, I don't know, seeing something, and whatever that's what you're
Yeah. I guess another way to think of it is, so remember back when we were talking, I don't remember whose class this was, but they went over this, it was Gus going over SQL. So SQL is declarative in other cases. So you declare what you want your return object to look like. So state is also declarative. So that declares what you want your component to be at any given time. So your component can react to that declaration. So if you say you have this input, so we declare what we want our text to be, and that becomes our state. And then the component updates based on that declaration. Prop would be imperative, where we say prop, input this text in. Does that make sense? A little bit? Yeah. Okay.
Not quite grasp. I mean, I get what you're saying, but
Sure. Okay. I guess any other questions? We'll take a brief pause here. Okay. Let's move on a bit. So we got 20 minutes left, so we'll break at 7. What can I show now? Let's show, okay, so React components, the whole idea is reusability. So I believe Garner was mentioning this earlier, how you can just import components from somewhere else and use them inside of your application. So let's do that. Let's grab the React Strap package. And so what React Strap is, it's a set of Bootstrap 4 components, which means they're components that wrap basic HTML components and Bootstrap classes. So you know how like Bootstrap form, for example, you'd have to have a div with the class form, and then inside of you have more divs with class form group, and then inputs would be like form inputs and so on and so forth. This makes it easy, so you don't have to install those classes all the time. So first thing we have to do, we have to install React Strap in our project. So let's see, that's going to be npm install save React Strap. Wait for this to install. This is taking a while, huh? Well, someday we can get started on this. Okay, so let's see. Let's do it inside safe component here. Import. This will complain, but it's okay. I promise it'll fix itself later. Let's see, form group, we want input, and we want label from React. That's okay. So cool. So let's start with this. Let's add a form. Form. Okay. And
So when you're in React.
Mhm.
You're on React.
Yeah.
So does it not create the brackets?
Uh,
Form. Why did you have?
so we capitalize it because same issue I had before. Custom components have to have the capital letter in front of it. As far as typing the brackets out, you could do this and then it'll just, yeah, it completes it for you. But because I had this already, I had to delete the other one and bring it down there. Okay, so now we can create a form group. Whoops. Form group. I want to bring this into here. And this becomes input. We can also do a label. Did I include label above? Pretty sure I did. I did. Very good. All right. So for, we'll say, let's see, test text. Let's see, text updated by state. Put the ID in here. Okay, and then we can do the same thing down here, create another form group for this button. Actually, we don't need to do that. I'm just going to input a button up here. Okay. And we'll call it color. Uh-huh. Okay, sounds good, because my heart rate is extremely fast right now. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. This is just good. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time now, and everybody types typos. Maybe I'm just slow, but yeah. Also doesn't help that I'm kind of like standing up, and my my laptop is tilted towards me. Okay, so we have our form group, we have our button, have our form. Okay. One last thing we have to do, we have to install Bootstrap too. I forgot because they didn't include it in the list. That's not how you spell Bootstrap. That's how you spell Bootstrap. That's okay. Meanwhile, we can. So we have to import the CSS file. And so when we import the CSS file, we want to do it from the topmost component. So all the other components will get a reference to it. In this case, we can just put it right here inside app. Oh, so this is a neat thing. Create React app has different file loaders, and file loaders basically just look at the extension and decide what to do with that file. So JS, it knows that, hey, this is a JavaScript file. We should check this for JavaScript code and JSX and do stuff with it. But it can also do CSS files. And it knows to say, hey, this is a CSS file. Let's add a reference to the header of the page. So it's there for us when we need it. Okay, so that is that. We should just be able to run our server again. And there we go. Well, a little bit worse for the wear, but we have a Bootstrap form, and we have input, and we have this kind of a button. It's a little small, but it's still a button. It counts. What is the actual syntax for button? Oh, we just throw it inside the closing tag, right? Why though? There we go. Now that looks like a button. So just like that, we created a form that's styled with Bootstrap. Didn't have to write any class names out or anything. We just grabbed components and dropped them in. And there's other components we can use too. Let's see. Let's find a fun widget to use. Let's see. Good. Let's see. React widgets. So really, you can kind of just like search into Google, React anything that you might, so like a React combo box or a React date time picker, which is how I found this set of widgets originally. So let's see, let's npm install React widgets. Also, we need to install Moment because I know for a fact it will complain if we don't have Moment.js localized in there. Actually, there's another package we need at the same time. That is, sorry, give me 1 second here. They give us a nice package we can use. Here it is, React Widgets Moment. So we can copy this back in, and we'll throw React Widgets in front of here, because that's not in the list right now. Cool, so that's in there now. We have to set the localizer, and I think that goes, oh yeah, we can just throw this up in our, I did not. Yeah, so Yarn was a competing project for a while. NPM had some performance issues for a while, so Yarn was created to fix some of those issues. But NPM's honestly a lot better now. Yes, Linda, I will get you those links. Yeah. So NPM is perfectly workable now. Okay, so need these lines here. I'll copy them into our stateful component. cool. Okay, so this is our date time picker. There's also similar to how we did React Strap, we had to import Bootstrap CSS file. React Widgets also has a CSS file we need to import, but I think we can find that on their getting started page. Yep, right here. So we'll just throw this right here because this is the only place we'll need it. Okay, cool. So let's render a date time picker. Let's say we will render a, let's say we have a date value. Date, we'll just say date time or date.now. Don't forget our comma. And then we can come down here, we can say this dot state dot date. Okay, so kind of important thing to know when you're setting state like this. Set state will replace your state with whatever's inside of here. State is immutable in React.js. Immutable means basically you don't update a state object, you replace it. So we can do this.state.date to get the existing date, but we have to remember to pass into the new set state object, otherwise it'll get erased. And there's other ways to make that a little bit faster. I'll get into that as we go on in the week. But for now, we only have the one extra property, so it's not too bad to write it out by hand. Okay. So finally, let's throw our date picker in here. Let's see, let's get a form group going. Label for, I think this will work the same. Let's see, test date. Choose your date. Okay, and then we want to say date picker, or rather date time picker. Let's see, initial, I think we can say initial, or current date, here we go. Default current date is going to be this.state.date. I'm pretty sure that's all we should need for that one. All right, we'll run it just to make sure I got all the props right. Okay, here we go, date time picker. Well, that's a fun one. Failed prop type, invalid prop current date of type number. Affected instance of date. Oh, it probably wants new date. So basically what happens there is datetime.now returns like the amount of milliseconds from epoch, which I think is like 1970. New date returns an actual date object, which is what the date time picker is expecting. So we run this again. We should see much happier application. Oh, I lied. Okay. Let me try throwing, okay, first let me throw an on-change handler in here. E. Let's see. Set state text value. This dot state dot text value date E dot target dot value. Oh, one more. Okay. Now let's try it. There we go. Oh, close. Let's see. Okay, instead of just guessing at this, let me just look at their documentation real quick. Just on change. Oh, okay, so it doesn't give us, that's right, it does not give us the event, it just gives us the value of the picker, so we don't have to even do event.target.value. Just say, make that value, make this value. Go back to here. Oops. Select July 24th. Okay, there we go. Sorry? Yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing. I mean, in this case, it really isn't that difficult. I mean, apart from these few parts where my memory is shot and I can't remember documentation to save my life, so I always have to look it up. It's not too bad. Again, coding a date picker like this would take a lot of time, but hey, somebody out there was kind enough to develop it for us and give us an open source library that we can take and use on our own. Really handy. I mean, all we had to do to import it was just add what, 3 packages and 4 lines of code, 5 lines of code here, 6, I can count. Okay, so now we can take that and we can say, let's throw it inside of value. Let's see, $sign that. Say time. This date. Rather, let's do moment. Format. Backtick. My account is off here. Oh, yep. There we go. And moments problem is moment is not defined, so we have to import moment. Oh, capital M. Capitalization is important. Okay. Hey, look at that. So because we gave our date, our current date, it's showing up as height, and then the time is now. And if we want to choose our date, let's see, we can do this, and we do that, and it updates for us. Pretty instantaneously. I didn't even notice to do that. There we go. So just another example of state being set. Okay. Well, 7 o'clock. Any questions before we take a break?
Curious, if you wanted to add like a reminder.
Yeah. So how would you imagine it working? Just like a pop-up or something that you click to set the reminder?
Yeah, usually there's just a little icon, yeah, just click on it.
Okay. I don't know if But I mean, let's put that to the test. Let's see. React. So this was an app that uses reminder. Probably wouldn't want to use this one. Doesn't look like it's very big.
Not that one, I was just curious about like the kind of.
Yeah, I mean, so something like that, it's a little bit more than a single component. You can definitely get the parts of the component you need though. So you probably want your button and the form to set the alert. And then you probably want something to update the alert, but the rest would be handled through, you probably say that in like your database or something. So the rest would be, you'd get your props from the database and then update the app based on those. Yep. All right, good to take a break then, or? Cool. Come back in 15 minutes. All right, we'll be back in 15 minutes, Linda. I'll find those links for you in the meantime. Hello, we're coming back now. Sorry.
No worries. I just didn't know if it was my
Okay.
remote.
So let's see. Everybody's back. Almost. I think we're good. Okay. So for the last hour of class, I'm going to give you some free work time, and there's a project I want you to make for me. Just a real simple React app. It's right out. Let's write out the requirements. So assignment. Let's see, simple hello world app requirements. Header that says hello world. Oh, move to a new page. Okay, so then we also need some text input. Let's see, a text input, a button. Let's see, and then finally, let's say we'll have a text area that is updated with the input from with text from the input on button press. Okay. So assignment next hour. Let's see if we can get through this. Just a couple of real simple requirements. It's our Hello World app, so we need it to say Hello World. Somewhere is on there by default. Otherwise, the police will arrest me. We also want a text input and a button. And then what that'll do is we'll have a fourth area, and then that'll just display whatever the text content is when we click the button. So does that sound good to everybody? Any questions? Cool. Okay. Do you want some help do you want to try it for a few, let's say 10 minutes, see if you know where to get started? Or do you want me to give you pointers to like how to start?
So what do you want us to do with the code?
I'll throw it out. It's our new Create React app. Yeah, so I'll throw that in. There's a requirement. Start with a fresh Create React app project. All right. So these requirements, it's important to note, they're pretty loose. I'm not really picky about what your code looks like or what your file structure is. I just need to see those 4 things on a page. So however you feel the need to accomplish that using React.js is fine by me. I will be up here. I will code an example. So you can reference that if you feel the need to. I might be moving along a bit quickly though, if you want to type along. So just stop me at any point and ask questions. But if you want, you can also just go off on your own if you feel confident.
Set up all the files and everything too? Or you just want us to just basically?
Well, if you remember, Create React app is what will set up all the files for you. Oh, actually, I know what I can do. I will take the Hello World app I was working on. Doesn't fit the requirements, but I'll throw it up on my sandbox folder so you can look at it for a reference. Give me a few moments. Oh, I am a fool. Oh, I don't get up.